Now, knuckleball pitchers are basically the ugly ducklings of baseball. Because the pitch is so unpredictable, there aren't many pitchers who attempt perfecting it. And because there are so few knuckleball pitchers, instead of being super competitive with each other, they actually form a kind of brotherhood. This is what Dickey writes in his memoir. He says, "There's no chance that an opposing pitcher, no matter how nice a guy, is going to invite me to watch how he grips and throws his split-fingered fastball or slider. Those are state secrets." But with Dickey's fellow knuckleballers, things are a little bit different. This is what he says. He says, "Knuckleballers don't keep secrets. It's as if we have a greater mission beyond our own fortune. And that mission is to pass it on, to keep the pitch alive." So as you hang out in your seniors and you start sharing things, you will run into your fellow knuckleballers. And these are your real peers. These are your inner circle. They're the people who share your obsessions, the people who share a similar mission to your own, and the people with whom you'll share a mutual respect. And it's very important when you meet these people not to treat them as your competition, but to treat them as potential collaborators or co-conspirators. So when I first started posting my drawings of South by Southwest online, people pointed to other people who are also posting drawings at South by Southwest. People like my friends Dave Gray and Mike Rohde and Sonny Brown. And at first, I had that vampire genius pang in my gut, oh shit, I'm not very original. But then I moved on and I realized that something interesting was happening here. That in this conference that celebrated digital ones and zeros, it was actually people who were using their digits to draw that were gathering attention. It's okay, honey, it's almost over. That's my kid. So anyway, the next year, I suggested that we all band together, and I put together a panel teaching people some really basic drawing skills and lettering skills that would allow them to do the same kind of drawings at South by Southwest. It was a really well-attended panel, and it felt like at least half of the people who attended the panel actually went on to draw themselves. And the next year, there's this whole army of people drawing at South by Southwest, and here's one of them over here on the side of the stage. Now, just because we taught people how to draw at South by Southwest didn't mean all of a sudden that we had all this competition, like we were putting ourselves out of business or something. In fact, both Mike and Sonny went on to publish books about how to draw. The interest in drawing, it didn't subtract from their own work, it actually added value to it. And so that's why I say, teach what you know. The minute you learn something, turn around and teach it to others. It doesn't even matter if you're an expert at it. The writer C.S. Lewis, he said, a student can help a fellow student more than a teacher because the fellow student knows less. When a student teaches, he's newer to the material that he's teaching, and so the difficulty of understanding it is one that he's recently met. The expert or the seasoned teacher met the material so long ago, he often forgets what it's like to come to it as a student. So I think the best way to get started on the path to becoming part of the seniors is to think about what you want to learn to do and make a commitment to learning it in front of others. Document your progress and share as you go so that others can learn along with you. Work out in the open. And don't just, don't just share your products, share your process. Think about what you know how to do that other people would be interested in learning. Think about what you have to contribute. When you teach someone how to do your work, when you let them work over your shoulder, you are, in effect, generating more interest in your work. People feel closer to your work because you're letting them in on what you know. And of course, teaching is not a completely altruistic activity. When you share your knowledge and your work with others, you receive an education in return. After I put out my first book, Newspaper Blackout, I decided to start a site where I encourage people to make their own poems and post them online and share them with others. And happen, I've actually learned so much from these folks because they send me the craziest stuff. You know, I find a lot of things to steal from them. It benefits me just as much as it does them. Now, going back a bit, when I saw that small army drawing ideas at South by Southwest, I thought it might be time to start drawing some of my own ideas. And that's really a constant process. You have to kind of take a look at the scenius and make note of what's not being done as much as what's being done. Look out for the voids for where you might be able to fulfill your own efforts. And that's where you position yourself and you do work that connects people. And then you go on and find another void and fill it. You do work that connects people. And then that's one way to go about a career is you just keep looking for the voids and fill them with your own efforts. And once you've made these connections, you have to be on the lookout for even more to fill. And you just kind of repeat this over and over. When I was working on my book, Steal Like an Artist, I just kind of wrote a book that I wanted to read. I just kind of wrote a book that I thought was missing from the bookstore shelves. And a funny thing happened while I was working on it. Tons of people pointed out how unoriginal I was. And they pointed to the work of, the really great work of Kirby Ferguson, the filmmaker, and his series Everything is a Remix. And it was very obvious that Kirby and I were kind of circling the same territory. But again, like I suppressed that vampire gut urge, you know, and instead of seeing Kirby as a competition, I saw him as a fellow knuckleballer, and I reached out to him. And then we ended up doing a panel together the next year. And it was a really successful and well-attended panel, and it kind of helped us both along. And this is a process I've tried to kind of repeat over time because, you know, this is not a reality show, and I'm not a reality show contestant. I'm here to make friends. You know? And when I see people whose work I respect and sometimes envy, I understand that those are the people that I want to learn from, the people that I want to be my allies, you know. The drummer for The Roots, Questlove, he says, the only mofos that I let in my circle are the ones I can learn from. Because it's actually true in life that, you know, it's about who you know. But who you know is largely dependent on who you are and what you do. And the people you know can't do anything for you if you're not doing good work. Dave or Mike or Sonny or Kirby, they wouldn't have said yes to my proposals if I wasn't doing work that they were also interested in, and if I didn't have something to also offer them. There was a really great Reddit AMA. How many people here know who Steve Albini is? Yeah, so he's the famous record producer. He produced the Pixies record and the first record and Nirvana's In Your Grow and tons of other great stuff. But anyway, he did this Reddit AMA, and one of the people who jumped on was this former X Factor contestant. I don't know if you remember him. He sang Creep and did like a weird robot dance. But anyway, he asked Steve right in the Reddit, he was like, hey man, will you produce my record for me? And he was basically kind of acting like a piece of human spam, you know? And I feel like he thought that if he could just kind of hitch himself to Albini's wagon, his genius would shine through, you know? His problem was he just didn't have the right connections, is what he thought. And Albini called bullshit on this. And this is what he said. He said, connections don't mean shit. I've never had any connections that weren't a natural outgrowth of doing things I was doing anyway. He then kind of lamented how people waste time and energy trying to make connections instead of getting good at things, when being good at things is the only thing that earns you clout or connections. So, like, all the people I look up to today and, like, try to steal from, they all sort of know this intuitively. What they've done is they've all dedicated themselves to their thing, but they've built sharing into their routine. Like, these people aren't schmoozing at cocktail parties. They're too busy for that. They're just, like, cranking away in their studios and their labs or in their cubicles. But instead of maintaining absolute secrecy and hoarding their work, they're open about what they're working on, and they're consistently posting bits and pieces of their work and their ideas and what they're learning online. You know, following these people, it's kind of like getting all the DVD extras before a movie comes out. you kind of get to watch the deleted scenes and listen to the director's commentary while the movie's being made. So like instead of wasting their time networking, what they're doing is they're taking advantage of the network. And what happens is, by generously sharing their ideas and their knowledge, they kind of nurture a genius along that they can then leverage when they need it for fellowship, feedback, or patronage. Now these people are they're playing a long game. They're putting in their little bits of effort, and they're sharing pieces of the work, and they're having faith that over time, those little bits of effort will turn into something big. Now, playing a long game is not something that this conference does extremely well when it comes to talking about. You know, South by Southwest is the place we go to see the next big thing. You know, what's the new app? What's the breakout film? Who's the breakout band? But I have to say that like one of my most memorable South by Southwest experiences was in 2011. I went to see the premiere of Herzog's Cave of Forgotten Dreams. If you're not familiar with the film, it's about the Chauvet Caves in southern France, and it's home to the oldest cave paintings on Earth. They're like over 30,000 years old. And this thing happened when I walked out of that dark theater. I kind of walked into the Texas sunshine, and I saw this grandfather and his granddaughter, and they were drawing in chalk on the sidewalk. And as a person who spends the majority of his time making marks to create meaning, I got kind of really overwhelmed and emotional thinking about the way that marks can last and the way they travel through time and the way they can connect human beings. I had also had a lot of beers at the Alamo. And I felt very lucky that up until that point, I'd spent my life learning how to make marks and make meaning. Because it's very easy in this place right now, and in this culture, to get caught up chasing that next big thing, you know? And so let's not forget to chase after the thing that lasts, you know, the thing that's going to be around. I realized that in the past couple of years, my favorite art documentaries, they've all been about senior citizens. People like Bill Cunningham in Bill Cunningham, New York. He spent his career living a lean, kind of monk-like existence, prowling the streets of New York, taking photos for the New York Times. Or someone like Joan Rivers, who's actually on the complete opposite of the spectrum. She makes a ton of money, and then she spends it all, so she has to keep working, telling jokes. Then back again to someone like Jiro from Jiro Dreams of Sushi. You know, he lives this humble, dedicated existence, doing one thing and one thing only, and doing it better than anyone else in sushi. These are all people who have dedicated themselves to a craft, and they've let that dedication see them through the ups and downs in their lives. And it's these people that I'm really looking up to right now, basically the people who are eligible for the senior discount at Denny's. You know? It's the people who've been around, not the 30-year-old idiots like me who got lucky. Because we're in the midst of a culture in which we celebrate the fastest rising stars. We're in this culture, something like the startup culture, where the highest peak of success is selling something off that you spent years and years bidding, selling it away to the highest bidder. So, you know, I want you all to think about, you know, ask yourself, what are you building right now that's going to last? You know, what are you dedicating yourself to that's going to see you through until your end? And if that seems scary or like a lot of work, picture this. Everyone in this room is going to be dead one day. There's a cheery thought for you. It starts out by Southwest on. You know, most of us prefer to ignore this basic fact of life, but thinking about our inevitable end has a way of putting everything into perspective. You know, we've all heard stories of people having near-death experiences, and it like springs them into action. Because people who've had experiences with death, they tend to be better at looking at life like the gift it is. Because a proximity to death puts us in touch with life. Now, I will tell you what my problem is. My problem is that I am a coward. And as much as I would love the existential euphoria that comes with a near-death experience, I do not want to die, and I do not want to court death, and I do not want to taunt it or invite it any closer to me. But what I do want to do is I want to somehow remember that it's coming for me. And it's for this reason that, going back to the newspaper, I don't black out the obituaries. I actually read the obituaries. Because I think that obituaries are like near-death experiences for cowards. Reading them is a way for me to think about death while keeping it at an arm's length. Reading about people who are dead now and did things with their lives makes me want to get up and do something decent with mine. Thinking about death every morning makes me want to live. So, it might seem like it's going to bum you out, but try it. Try it for a week. Start reading the obituaries every morning. Take inspiration from the people who've muddled through life before you, because they all started out as amateurs and beginners. And they all got where they were going by making do with what they were given and having the guts to put themselves out there. Because this life is mostly just, as far as I can tell, it's mostly an endurance match. Because every life is full of ups and downs, and when you're in the middle of living out your life, you don't know whether you're up or whether you're down, or what's going to happen next. So it's very important not to quit prematurely, because the people who get what they're after are often the ones that just stick around long enough. You can't plan on anything. You can only go about your work, as Isaac Dinesen wrote, every day without hope or despair. You can't count on the success or getting discovered. You can only leave open the possibility for it and be ready to jump on and take the ride when it comes for you. So I encourage you, when you're lost, when you're thinking about your next move, just think about that idea of sameness, and think about how you can be not a piece of human spam or a vampire, but a contributor, someone who helps that sameness along. Don't be creepy. Don't be a jerk. Don't waste people's time. Don't ask too much. And don't ever ask people to follow you. Follow me back is the saddest question on the internet. Because that's how we battle the infected, the vampires and the human spam, and that's how we live through our monster movie and save South by Southwest, by being human beings. Just, share your work that you love, show your own work, and you'll meet the people that you need to meet, and the people who will get you where you need to go. Thanks for listening.